Governor, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely.
Really
This is
appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you for coming in. I don't get to actually sit on a one-on-one interview. This is one of the first ones I've done in a while, so it's very apropos.
It's refreshing not to wear a mask. It's great to have the vaccine. Brighter days ahead.
Without a doubt. I mean, New Hampshire's come through it very well. The citizens have done an amazing job with not just with vaccine distribution, but also understanding that we have to make sacrifice. Had to make some very serious sacrifices over the past year, whether they're with business restrictions, what's happening in schools, all of that. Everybody could write a novel on how COVID impacted them, right? Individually. I mean, nobody was left unscathed from this. So we try to appreciate that anxiety, those worries, and stay in tune with that. But we really are coming out, and I think everyone's just excited about summer.
Amen. We've said before that the pandemic's not going to come to a hard stop. It's going to be a gradual.
Yeah.
But as we're emerging now from that, what changes remain for the Granite State as we're now emerging and coming back to hopefully normal?
Sure. Well, look, I think what we're talking about here today is workforce. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues. The fact that at this time last year we had about a 17% unemployment rate. Right now we're back to pretty much pre-pandemic levels, just below 3%. Everyone is putting out every dollar they can possibly put out for any employee they can find in every industry. That's a very good thing, in terms of a strong economy, but it's also worrisome because you want to make sure folks are incentivized back into that workforce. The other big issue is with so many folks coming in, look, if you're in the real estate business, you're welcome, frankly, because you're making a fortune, right? I mean, the real estate business is just on fire. That's a good thing in that folks are coming in, businesses are landing here, they want to be in the Northeast, they want to be in New Hampshire. But at some point, that housing crunch we had pre-pandemic is really getting exacerbated now. So we keep pushing all these incentives that we can at the local level. You can't have strong business and a strong economy and a strong workforce if you don't have the housing, right? They got to live somewhere, and appropriate housing and good workforce housing. So I think not just getting folks back to work, but also having that housing piece hand in hand. We got the businesses, we got the incentives, the motives, people are coming in, but you kind of need those last two pieces. And we really need to get back to figuring out how to incentivize that to happen, not from a government mandate, because we don't believe in big government top-down here in New Hampshire, but a real incentive program at the local level to spur those things along.
Great. We're going to circle back to that in a second, Governor, but recently you ended the state mandatory masking or the mask mandate, and now we've shifted focus to best practices, and that is a welcome release to many employers in that regard. But can you talk a little bit about what the recommended practices are for maintaining a safe workplace?
Sure. So the best part about the recommended practices that we're going to in just a few days here in the first week in May is it's nothing new. It's things that we've all been practicing in our workplaces, working with public health and Dr. Chan and his team when we came up with these recommendations as we did what we called Safer at Home 2.0, which is really the world of opening back up, but with some certain restrictions on the workplace. We really went through in a very myopic way, what's best for hair salons, right? Let's talk to the restaurant folks here. Let's talk to the folks that run, Canopy Lake Park over here. Really at a detailed level to understand their businesses, their practices, and how best to provide a safe atmosphere for their customers. And I think we did that very, very well. So I bring that up because what we're talking about now with the recommendations, it's just kind of an extension of a lot of that. We're not mandating from the state top down. Remember, when we do a state mandate, when I do that, I'm saying whether you live in Randolph up in Coos County or you live in downtown Manchester, you all have to abide by the same state rules. We pull the mandates off because that allows more localization of that, or private businesses to have their own best practices. So the good news is it's nothing new. It's just kind of those general things. It's really a big blanket reminder. And it's not just for the state's perspective, and it's for your employees. It's for your customer, right? Remember, when you put some of these things in place, it makes your customers feel a little more comfortable, your employees a little safer. Maybe it helps you retain employees or allow employees to come back into the workplace but still feel safe and secure while we're going through COVID, because you said it's not a hard stop, and it's not as we gradually come out of this. So we try to always find the balance in what we do, and I think that's why New Hampshire's been fairly successful overall.
So what have you been hearing as you've been announcing these changes and the focus?
Well, it's all very positive. I think people are very excited that we're coming out of COVID. I think they look at that we are very data-driven here. Anytime I make a significant decision, I got the data right behind me, and I want folks to know that Dr. Chan and myself and the entire team, Perry Plummer, we're always looking at the trends, the data, where those lines kind of marry up. Not just a single point of the day, that would be easy to do, but to really look at where do we think we're going. And remember, we didn't know anything about this a year ago. So I think we've kind of designed our playbook, studied how this stuff moves, how the numbers move, and that's allowed us to make better decisions. So, you know, being, I think, very transparent in what we do has been very, very important. I know my press conferences can go on kind of ad nauseum at times, but I tried to, one of the tools that we had in the toolbox, and we didn't have many at the very beginning, I said, one of the tools I do have is being extremely transparent and extremely upfront about everything we do. Mm-hmm. And when we say we're all in this together, we're going to really be all in this together, because what you know, I know. And that's why I would come out on those press conferences on a daily basis. And it was an amazingly powerful tool from, if I could, from a crisis management leadership perspective. I think it helped folks help allay some anxieties. And everyone had the right to have a lot of anxieties about themselves, their jobs, their kids, health and safety. What was the true nature of this pandemic in its early phases? But by being super transparent about what we did, we tried to really tap into some of those in an empathetic way with some of those anxieties, and that allowed us, I think, to make the right decisions at the right times.
Great. And you talked about Dr. Chan and others, but talk just a little bit about your task force too, and the composition of that and their contributions.
The Reopen Task Force, yeah. So, you know, we tried to bring in folks from all different areas of the private sector, folks on the kind of public service side, and from the health and safety side, the Department of Public Health. And so by having kind of that good mix, you know, you never want a task force to get too big. It's very easy in government to do these 45 people on the task force. Nothing gets done with that, right? So we tried to find a good balance where we had good representation, but could actually get stuff done on a weekly basis. We made them very public. Those meetings would go on hours sometimes, but people could call in and say, look, I'm a salon owner in Warner, and this is my issue, and I see what you guys are trying to do, but I'd have a problem with this, and I'd have a problem with that. At the end of the day, you can't make everybody happy, and you have to make some tough decisions, but it was all about, with that public input, they could provide that balance. So they would kind of be that first salvo, if you will, that first attempt to craft something. Then it would come to myself and Dr. Chan. He'd put more of the public health and safety aspect on it. I'd put more of the economic balance, right? What else? The benefit I have as governor, sometimes the benefit and the burden, is I can see all the puzzle pieces at once, right? And so you kind of have to see where things are going to line up. Well, if we do this here, that could have a negative repercussion there. Or this industry is being treated differently than that one. So we tried to take a real, my job was to take that top-down perspective and kind of see where all those pieces were moving. And I think in doing that and having that public input, we were very successful, and that is allowing us to go to these more recommendations now, which is nothing new, everything folks have been doing, and it allowed our economy to be very, very strong throughout the entire pandemic. It's amazing. A quick stat, I've gone back 3 times to ask my Commissioner, Lindsay Stepp of Revenue, to confirm this, but less businesses closed in 2020 than in 2019. That's amazing in New Hampshire. That's an amazing statistic. And so we were able, it doesn't mean that businesses didn't feel the brunt of this, of course they did. But we were able to put a lot of money through the CARES Act into the economy, keep businesses, if you will, propped up, surviving a little longer. Look, maybe some of those businesses naturally would have closed on their own if they hadn't been able to take advantage of some of the COVID dollars that came in. We did a lot of that more in New Hampshire than anywhere else. And knowing that we were playing for the long game economically, knowing that there was going to be a big resurgence in 21 and I think into 22. And once you get rid of a business, it's 1,000 times harder to restart it than the efforts just to keep it going for a few months here, keep it alive, keep those employees safe, keep those employees employed, so that everyone can participate in the economic opportunities that we have today.
So, Governor, the HR professionals, they have a tough job anyway. They do, you know.
God bless you, by the way. I couldn't do that job for 5 minutes.
Recruiting, hiring, and you know this from a business background, establishing policies and compliance. They also have to monitor everything from Washington to Concord. New laws, bills that are on the horizon, new laws, regulations, and the like. So as we're
and then they have to deal with all the daily personal issues in the office, right? They are the end-all, be-all, if you will, of every little personal issue that comes in. So
right, and COVID was a particularly difficult year for them because they also had to become experts in safety and follow the protocols and so on. Now, again, as we're coming out of that, what initiatives do you see from your office, from the Executive Council, from the legislature, from the state agencies that will help, again, this economy move forward?
Sure. So a couple of things. We talked a little bit about housing, right? I'm a big believer. There's a few things that we can do at the state level to try to incentivize more housing, which gets hopefully more workers to support those businesses. You can't support business without support housing. The next big one is reskilling, right? I think COVID was an amazing reskilling opportunity for individuals. Some folks might say, you know what, I've been in my career for 10 years. I had to take a pause for 6 months. Maybe this is the good Lord telling me it's time to go back to school and try my passion in as an executive chef, or we're going to open that bed and breakfast, or I'm going to not just go back to work and be in my same position, but I'm going to try to reskill so I can get different advancement within the company I'm already in. And taking advantage of more online opportunities. A lot of folks were taking online classes, not just students, but adults, kind of reskilling themselves for their next career path. And so I think that's where we are right now. We're kind of in that transition mode. I think ultimately, to go not off tangent too much, we're going to see a big resurgence in workforce in September and October. We're going to have a tough summer with getting workforce back in. You have a lot of money out there, specifically from the federal government, that is creating a bit of a disincentive, if you will, from going back to work. When you're getting all this money from the Fed saying, well, you can stay home and do nothing, or you can go back to work for just a few extra bucks. So folks are making that decision, and they're saying, well, it might cost me a little more, but I can spend more time with my family. Or they're saying, you know what, I didn't get to take that vacation in 2020. I'm going to take another couple months off this summer and then really get back into it when my kids are back at school full-time. They already are here in New Hampshire, but really kind of full-time and for the long term come next September. So I think you'll see a lot of folks re-engaging in the workforce in this coming fall.
Well, let's talk about that just for a second. The change in the requirement for unemployment benefits.
Yes.
You have to look for a job.
Sorry, great question. We early on in the pandemic, we realized there were going to be a lot of folks on unemployment, and if they had to go look for work that either A, wasn't there, or B, they had to go in and actually have a one-on-one interview, but they didn't feel safe doing so. That was going to be a bridge too far for folks, and we understood that. So we were one of the first states in the country to really drastically change how we did unemployment. We provided an unemployment fund and incentive for folks, back before even the federal government was doing it. We opened up our eligibility. And in doing that, we also got rid of the work requirement. Now our economy is coming back. People are vaccinated. They can do it safely and easily. So just saying, yeah, we're going back to the old system. We're not adding more burdens. We're just going back to the old system where if you want unemployment, you got to go look for a job. And there are tens of thousands of jobs available today. It'd be a different story if we were in, even Massachusetts still has a real tough time. Their unemployment rate is fairly high. But here in New Hampshire, we just have so many jobs available. So many businesses have made that choice to move here, or they've made their capital investments over the past year. It's interesting, when everyone took a bit of a pause while businesses didn't close, they said, well, we're taking a pause, and now is when we're going to reinvest for a new machine in the factory, a new capital investment in the office, whatever it was. So as folks are kind of coming back in, they're able to kind of utilize those capital investments, and those businesses are ready to grow. And that's one of the reasons you're seeing such a demand out there from all sectors of the economy.
So let's talk about that, the magnet of drawing folks, businesses, and people to New Hampshire. Some states are looking at vaccine passports and things of that nature, travel restrictions. Employers in New Hampshire are starting to send their employees back out again for business, and beyond the borders of New Hampshire. But as you look to that, and also for people coming in, would New Hampshire ever consider, or what are your thoughts about a vaccine passport?
No, really, you get down a rabbit hole of so many problems when you start talking about vaccine passports. You're really just disseminating between the haves and the have-nots, and you're doing it on a medical basis, right? Who has a vaccine, who doesn't, why this person needs exemption, why this person doesn't. Can you imagine the burden on HR? If you have 2/3 of the staff saying, well, we're vaccinated, and 1/3 of the staff saying, well, we're not going to get vaccinated, and 5 individuals saying, well, I have this medical condition, so I can't get vaccinated. And so now you're starting to move everybody around within the office, and are people losing their jobs because they couldn't get a vaccine from it? I mean, it would be a mess. It would be an absolute mess. So no, we're really not looking to do that here. We have a very high vaccine uptake rate as is. I think that creates an opportunity, but even if we didn't, this is still an experimental vaccine. Second, we've only scratched the surface of the problems you're going to get with a vaccine passport. And I haven't heard many governors, even some of the more extremely liberal, if you will, governors that started scratching this a little bit on vaccine passports. Even a lot of them, I think, are realizing it really could create way more problems than it's worth. Folks are going to choose to get the vaccine, or they're not. And folks are choosing to protect themselves, or they're not. And that's absolutely their choice, and that's fine. As long as those who want that protection have that protection and that opportunity, that's what's most important, and we've been able to provide that.
Terrific. Governor, I'm going to ask you a question perhaps that you've never been asked before, but here we go.
I'm excited. Hold
All
on.
right.
Okay. We're
If
good.
you had a crystal ball and you could look into the future to see what New Hampshire looks like 2 years from now, 5 years from now,
Yeah.
10 years from now, what would it look like, and what initiatives are you talking about and this legislature talking about to get there?
Wow. Well, look, I'm a big believer that from a strong economy comes opportunity. So you have to focus on a strong economy. You have to keep government nimble, right? I'm not saying don't trust government, but I'm telling you, as the head of government, trust but verify, right? And you do that by keeping it local. And so my biggest concern, one of the biggest concerns we hear is and it is mine too, as a lot of folks move here. They move here a lot of folks are moving here from Europe, right? They're buying homes sight unseen out of England and Ireland especially, partially because of Brexit, partially because of COVID, partially because they want the vaccine. And they're just saying, now's the time to make that move. You're seeing that from San Francisco, New York, Boston. One thing I remind folks is remember why you came here. We do it very different in New Hampshire, and we do it a lot better, frankly. You remember, it's not on accident. It's by design, and it's not because Governor Sununu did X, Y, and Z, although I'm very proud of a lot of things that we've done here, and frankly not done with income taxes and sales taxes and big government and bureaucracy and all that sort of thing. Focusing on the individual, focusing on local control, and really kind of adhering to the fact that we stand on the shoulders of 200 plus years of good design and not to ruin that. And any single year through a legislative process, that could very easily get ruined. So it takes a lot of discipline. It takes understanding why we are a little bit different and a lot better. And hopefully we just remind folks why they came. Doesn't mean you have to be Republican or Democrat, nothing like that. It's just about those basic fundamentals of what Live Free or Die is all about. It ain't 4 words on a license plate. It really is how we govern ourselves here, how we take individual responsibility here. We all participate in the process. Everybody runs for something. I mean, if you or your family member hasn't run for something, you're in the minority here, right? And it could be planning board or school board. And frankly, those are the positions that have the most impact on our lives because we believe in local control and where we can have the best say for our families. It isn't big government. It isn't Washington. Lord knows that. And it really shouldn't and isn't conquered. It really is your local towns. And so I'm just a big believer that whatever the next 2, 5, and 50 years look like, we have to stay true to those ideals, regardless of the politics.
Well, Governor, I want to thank you so much for taking time today.
Oh, sure.
Thank you for your efforts in the last year. Certainly, could you ever imagine coming into this office, this is what you'd be facing?
Wow. I say it all the time, and I do mean it. It's been a very tough year for all of us. I don't wish the decisions I've had to make on any governor. I really don't. It was very, very hard. I had a good team, a small team. We keep it very nimble here. And there were some I'd say long nights, but long weeks, long months in those early days. But knowing we had kind of the support, if you will, of the citizens and the businesses and folks who were with us in that, it helped. It got very lonely here in the State House, there's no doubt. I'm an engineer, right? I'm a numbers guy and an engineer. I'm sure if I were a writer, I'd have a couple good books in me, to be sure. But that's not really my style. But a big thank you to all the citizens. I mean, we did have to make tough decisions, but they're the success, right? The citizens, the businesses that really drove through this, they are the formula of the success of the state. And it's why folks are looking and they're asking, their states, why can't you do it more like New Hampshire? And that's a point of pride for all of us.
So for our HR professionals out there, and that's the audience today, Governor, a word for them about what they've been through in the last year and what they can look forward to.
Well, look, again, just to reiterate, a huge thank you. You guys have some of the toughest jobs for jobs, and your job is to keep everyone happy, keep it all moving forward, and let the powers that be, the CEOs and the COOs, to know what the laws are, what the regs are. And that's been a very, very tough thing over the past year to understand as things have been pivoting moment by moment. How do we interpret this? What does it look like for our business? And so God bless everyone who's been on the front lines. Still a lot of work to do, to be sure. And there are still going to be some trying times still ahead as we transition out, but also opportunity. We're using technology more, right? How are we going to use our Zoom calls and our Zoom meetings? I know a lot of folks want to come back to the workplace. I think that's phenomenal. But for those who are still struggling with that, how can we use some of these technologies that have just boomed for us for all of us, frankly, and that's an opportunity. So there's always a silver lining here. New Hampshire is still going to be a place for workers and businesses to come. We don't seem to have enough. Our economy is still outpacing our workers, but we are one of the fastest growing states in the Northeast. That's great. But our businesses are growing even faster. So we just have to find that pathway to keep up. And the last thing I would throw out there is, when you're talking about housing, when you're talking about these issues, get involved at the local level, or get folks in your businesses involved at the local level to have a say with that planning board or with those folks that can make differences in the school system, because that's how a lot of workers will decide what community to come to. It's their school system, it's their planning boards or whatever it might be, to keep it where it needs to be. It isn't Concord that's going to solve and create the most opportunities. It's really at the localized level that happens. So whatever you guys can, whatever you have been doing, just keep it up. Keep doing some really good stuff. And also let us know. We try to be very responsive and let us know how we can make things better, what might be happening. We try to get granular and as one-on-one as we can with a lot of our issues. One thing I say all the time is, if this one business has this one issue and we spend a lot of time trying to fix that one issue, chances are there were 100 other businesses with the same problem but just didn't pick up the phone to us, right? So I try to encourage folks to spend time on those one-on-one issues, because you're not just helping one business, you're really helping the entire system ultimately.
Great. Well, thank you, Governor. Brighter days ahead.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank you.
you.